For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bobby Cobb, and I'm going to be kind of leading our program today. And for the ones that I do know and are here all the time, we're going to do things a little bit different today. So if people, we're going to start right away with a meditation. We're going to do the announcements at the end, and then that will kind of flow into our visioning. For those of you who don't know, the Adams Center has been told that we need to be out of this building by the end of May. So every Sunday after our gathering, we're having a visioning in an effort to manifest our new location. And in last week's visioning, one of the things that became really very crystal clear is there's a little uncertainty about Adam as an organization and kind of what we are pursuing and what we are representing, and for new members that would come in here, what we might be able to tell them that, you know, being a member here, this is how being a member here will feed you, and, you know, so we have a little bit of uncertainty around that. So today what I wanted to do was an internal exploration. It's kind of loosely called inquiry, open heart inquiry, where we're going to be spending a lot of time today with our feelings and our emotions and noticing what comes up, and kind of I'll take you through several exercises. I've got a couple of poems that I'm going to share with you. We'll do like a little nice meditation to begin with, and another very powerful one that we'll end with, and we'll do a little work along the way as well. So I think it's going to be super cool. You know, we are actually starting on time, which is very unique in the Adam experience. That's not something that anybody would call our strengths. And so, and Phil, would you mind grabbing like maybe 4 or 5 more chairs just in case people come, that they can set that up? Thank you. And so as people come in, I'm going to welcome them. They're going to look at me and they're going to be confused, and they're going to say, how come we're not doing the announcements? And that's what I normally come in late for, so I don't have to listen to the announcements. And so we're already going to be in progress, and I'm just going to, you know, I'll see them. You guys may have your eyes closed, but I'll see them and invite them in. And if I know who they are, I'm going to say, welcome, Gilbert, come on in. And just as they're coming in, just try to tune into the Gilbert energy, or whoever it is that happens to show up, the Salila energy if she comes, and sort of just see if you can energetically welcome her into this space and into this circle. And for the next little 5 minutes or so, I'm going to just put some nice, yummy, trancey music on. Invite you to just close your eyes and settle in to this space. And we'll spend about maybe 5 to 7 minutes like our normal beginning meditation. But let's pursue it today with the intention of really creating a yummy, safe place that we can explore and kind of do some thought experiments and some visualizations, and just create a very powerful experience here at Adam. And as you're meditating and listening to the music and listening to the words, try to just tune into your heart space and see if you can notice what's going on there. Do you feel in your heart chakra a sense of expansion, or a sense of contraction, or nothing really going on, or is it kind of coming or going? And just sort of, I'm going to invite you to just breathe into that energy without any preconceived idea of what is supposed to be happening, of what this is supposed to be like. And rather just settling into whatever is in the moment. So let me just get the music on design. So just breathe in and breathe out and kind of settle in to this space. No right or wrong way to do this. As you breathe in, just feel that you're breathing in light and love. And as you breathe out, have the intention that you're breathing out light and love initially back into the center of the room. Maybe imagine a white light or a golden ball or whatever shows up for you just as the symbol that represents the combined energy of our community settling in, coming into peace. And as you do that, just notice, is your body relaxing? Seems like that would be a natural response to slowing things down as you bring your energy and attention to your heart and focus your awareness there. You should be experiencing a little bit more clarity in your mind. Perhaps the inner critic is taking a little bit of a break. See if you can get so calm that the inner critic says, ooh, I want a little of this action myself. And don't resist anything that happens to be showing up. Just attempt to be one with whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, in this moment. And this is a little poem I wrote about getting lost in the illusion, chasing achievements, chasing goals, chasing liberation or salvation, chasing wealth. And this is called How Humpty Dumpty Got His Groove Back. Humpty Dumpty sat on his task, lost in his roles, his achievements, his mask. Humpty worked without pause, chasing perfection, seeking applause. The higher he climbed, the further he fell. Welcome, Laurel. Laurel's just entered the room, so she's back at the little room, just sitting there where we have the food. So let's just send some energy back to Laurel, send some of the energy that we're co-creating, and just welcome her into this space. The higher he climbed, the further he fell, till all of his doings cracked open his shell. Pieces laid scattered, his world torn apart, yet deep in his being there stirred a new start. See if you can feel some of that new energy starting to build up in you as you send the energy into the room. Then a wise man appeared. He was as quiet as dawn. His presence was simple, his wisdom well drawn. He spoke with no hurry, his words soft and true. Your struggle, dear egg, is what's clouding your view. And Jillian just entered the room. Welcome, Jillian. So we're just having a little meditation here. Let's see if we can energetically send some energy over to Jillian, make a heart-to-heart connection, welcome her into this space. You've mistaken your doings for all that you are, but being shines steady like the light of a star. The harder you strive, the more you'll divide. Let go of this chase, and you'll flow from inside. So part of this journey is about tapping into the flow of life that's happening in all of us. It's what gets us up in the morning. It's what tells the trees to release the leaves when fall is coming. It's what tells the bears in the summer to stock up on as much fatty food as it can stick in its mouth. It's what tells the geese to fly south for the winter. Let's just see if we can sit silently for just a second and just tap into that flow. Humpty looked up, his mind in a spin, not seeking achievement, for now that seems quite thin. Doing's an echo, a wave in the sea, but your essence, dear egg, is already free. Humpty grew still, the cracks all remained, but the weight of his striving was no longer sustained. He rose with new lightness, no longer contrived, in the rhythm of being, his essence revived. Dave Patterson just entered the room. He's actually back in the meditation room. So let's pause and create that heart-to-heart connection with Dave and invite him into this energy as well. And notice as we're pausing from building that ball in the center to connecting heart to heart with somebody else and going back to the ball, how does that feel on the inside? For you, what are you experiencing? No judgment around it, no right or wrong. No need to intellectually understand what is actually happening here. Just give yourself permission to simply be. So if you, like Humpty, are caught in the fray, pause for a moment and just rest in the way. Let doings unfold, but don't let them define. For your being's the source of one love divine. Is my worth not found in the things that I win? Not in the titles, the work, or the praise? Not in the doings that I try to fill my days? The sage smiled gently, as calm as a stream. Your being is whole, fragment it seems. So I invite you to just sit for another 30 seconds and just see what comes up for you. Not in the way of analysis, but tap into your heart space. And as you consider those words, and as we just bask in this tranquil energy that we are co-creating, connecting with one another, how does that heart space feel? Did it get lighter? Did you notice that your mind became quieter? That your heart space became more tranquil? Can you tap into the energy of everybody that's in this room? Just sit with that for a moment, and when you're ready, come on back to the room. And I would like to invite each and every one of you, if you're interested in sharing what your experience was, but if you will give me permission, if I sense that you are giving an analysis of what you experienced, or you're deconstructing intellectually what we just went through, I'm just going to ask you to pause and hold that for a second. I'd just like you to share kind of what your emotional experience was as we were doing that exercise. And we can welcome Marie to the room.
Hi.
And just connect with her.
And Sherry also.
And Sherry, yes. Sherry. Welcome, Sherry. Anybody like to share? This is kind of the interactive part of it.
He wants you to share, guys. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. We don't have to. I mean, if it just feels yummy, yes.
So something unexpected, but I was concentrating on my heart, but I was having some pain in my hip, and I just acknowledged the pain in my hip, but as I was concentrating on my heart, the pain just kind of faded away because I fell on the ice the other day. So it just faded,
Yeah, it is. Thank you. That's beautiful. I had a similar experience. I fell on the ice a little while ago, and my ribs are still kind of tender. And like in that meditation, I was totally, completely unaware of it. The moment that you mentioned the pain, my ribs were like, we're hurting too. We would like some attention. So we'll kind of play with that a little bit, and we're going to do an exercise in a little bit that's kind of specifically around that. So beautiful, thank you. Stacy.
Well, I was nice and relaxed and feeling comfortable, and when each new person came in, it was almost like a whole little swirl of energy around that person to bring them in. You know, so it was that kind of a thing like that.
A little bit of a vortex, almost around them.
I kind of
Beautiful.
felt like a hug. I mean, these wonderful people. I just kind of, myself just kind of.
Beautiful, thank you.
Well, my spirit guides just arrived, all three of them, and they were here.
Awesome,
That's it. They were here with us.
beautiful.
I want to piggyback on what Stacy said because I was a little later. but when I walked in, I noticed there was a chair there, and I started going for that, and then I heard, no, get in the circle. Yeah. And it felt like I was supposed to be in something, and I felt very welcome. And I was like, it felt it was okay. You show up when you can show up, and it's okay. So thank you, everyone.
So I want to invite us to just consider a concept. And I think every time I've spoken here, I've probably quoted the Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard Desjardins. You can tell me how my French accent was, probably not that good, but it is what it is. And he's famous for saying the phrase that we're not human beings that have occasional spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And he was a priest. He lived in the last century. And he was one of the Jesuits. That idea was so shocking to the Catholic Church that they immediately began proceedings to defrock him. And they did that kind of as a warning to say, hey buddy, straighten up and fly right. This is not the program. This is not the approved narrative. And Teilhard just kind of said, you know what, this is my truth. And we actually have in our library an interview with another priest. Teilhard had died by the time this recording was made, but it was another priest that knew him very well and was telling his story. And he was kind of on the outskirts of the church, and they basically kind of pushed him out. And this other particular priest, that was a very good friend of him, and embraced those teachings that we are spiritual beings and this is a human experience. And he made it his life's mission to, after Teilhard passed away at the monastery where they all lived, there was a graveyard, but the church prohibited him from being allowed to be buried in the graveyard because that was sacred space. And in the interview that we have in the library, this other priest, and I forget his name, tells the story of his battle to get to the point where Teilhard was allowed to, they exhumed his body and then reburied him in a ceremony, and he is now buried on the monastery of that Jesuit church. And to me, when I hear you guys describing that experience so beautifully, I think this is us in our spiritual essence. And that poem is about the fact that we are already awake awareness. We are already enlightened beings. We have already achieved sensation. That's an idea. I'm not asking you to believe it. In fact, rather than believing it, I'm going to ask you as we continue on today to just kind of play with that energy and see if that resonates with you. And see if you might be able to get to the point where it resonates with you so deeply that you could have the embodied knowing that Teilhard had, where he's just like, you know what, Katie, bar the door. I don't care what the consequences are. I see something. I feel something. And there is just no denying this truth. And I want you to just consider, and we can talk about it a little bit. In fact, I have my hand in it. That we live, that we are kind of, we can live from two different perspectives. we can live from that perspective of the divine I am, that we were just all in. And notice how easy it was to get in touch with that. There was really no effort involved. We just had to kind of sit down, relax, start breathing, bring our awareness into our heart space, and our body just knew what to do. There was really no effort involved. In fact, embedded in that poem is just the request of all of us to just stop trying. Embrace what Yoda said. Do or do not. There is no try. So we're always from one perspective of the divine I am. And in your little handout that's making its way around, you'll see two columns there. One of the columns is labeled sacred, and the other column is labeled scared. And this is just a little thing that I created for myself. I started to notice kind of when I had a realization almost 8 years ago where I just realized that that phrase is true. And I just saw it in a completely different way. Previously, it had been a really nice bumper sticker and an aspirational idea and something to work through. But as life would have it, I got very, very sick and had to be rushed to the hospital. I was kind of unconscious, sort of. I felt very aware. I could hear things still, but my brother and sister took me to the hospital. And my brother to this day says, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know what you're seeing. You were lying like face down in the car, not moving, and I was afraid you were going to die before we got to the hospital. And for like about 18 hours, I wasn't speaking. I was aware, and they said to me that I was out of it, and I'm like, no, I really wasn't. I know you, and I remember yesterday when you came in, and you were asking me, how am I doing, and then tapped on my foot. And I know I didn't respond, but I was right here. And I don't have any explanation for that.
You just needed rebooted.
Yeah. Needed to hit that switch and reload again. So I created this list as just a reminder of myself to check in and see, am I showing up as the divine essence that we all are? Am I showing up as the spirit having the human experience? Or am I lost in the story? And, a lot of times we live in support of the story of us. I've had a really amazing weekend, and I talked to the mother of a real good friend of mine last night, and she said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And I shared all of these things with her that had been going through, and I was absolutely lost in that moment in the story of Bobby. And it was like, Bobby did this, and then this happened, and then Bobby got to do this, and then this happened, and now this is happening. And it was very, very fun to tell. And she's like 95 years old. And I really enjoyed telling it. She really enjoyed hearing it. We had just a nice connection, talked about an hour on the phone. And then after that, I hung up the phone and sat down, and I just said, ooh, that was nice. And I recognized that I was in the story, but being in the story just felt good in that moment. It just felt like the right thing to
And then they
do.
rolled off the counter and everything changed.
Yeah, so we're not gonna talk a whole lot about this, but I just invite you to take this with you and you can kind of look at it and, just sort of see, but I'm curious, does it strike, and anybody got any initial thoughts about this as you look at it?
Well, it's brilliant, sacred, scared.
Yeah,
Just one letter
same thing.
moved, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's not my brilliance, that is an amazing, happy accident. Bud John was talking here one time, and he was talking about living from the sacred I am. And there was a typo. When Dawn sent the Wednesday email out, it said, "Come to Adam, enjoy the conversation with Bud John about living from the scared I am." And I had already had this chart was a work in progress, and I felt the exact same way. Oh man, this is so
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And what an interesting little thing that,
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
just two letters we switched.
I want to say that when you just shared that conversation that you had, my whole sense was that it wasn't an egoistic conversation you were having. You were expressing the blessings of your life. It wasn't about you. It was about that aspect that you're living. That's what it felt like to me.
Oh, beautiful.
Just to say that, like, because you sat up like this, oh, well, Bobby, but really, no, because
Yeah,
we're
no, I'm
human. We're human, but you were sharing the sacred part of your humanity and how you are being blessed and led through life on the sacred path, even though you're a human being. Because you're a human being. And because you're spiritually in tune with your source. That's how I felt.
That's beautiful.
Just
Thank
to
you.
say that.
And I like the, I don't know, I'll get it word for word, but you said that I was sharing the sacred part of my humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your path.
And
How
that's,
you've been blessed in your life.
I like
way.
that, but I just want to play around with switching those words around
Sure.
a little bit and see how that hits you.
Sure.
I mean, that's completely valid. And we can also look at that I was sharing the human part of my divinity. Or we, not me necessarily, we can be sharing the human part of our divinity. And there's a school of thought, there's a teacher I like on the internet called Rupert Spira, and he talks about the infinite and the finite. Those are just the words that he uses, and says, the finite, our finite mind, our rational mind, it is incapable of knowing the infinite. That's just really a concept. Infinite and eternal are two concepts that we can kind of sort of intellectually grasp, but I think it's very difficult to understand. And he suggests that we are all one shared being, one shared consciousness, and that's like the ocean of consciousness, and we are each unique waves on that consciousness. And when people talk about like the multiverse, that there's all of these separate things happening at the same time, I think this could be a representation of that. Because there's one thing that's happening here, but there's 25 or 30, however many people we've got here, experiences of this one thing. So it's interesting just to kind of play around with the idea that we are simultaneously one and unique expressions divine. And it's only through being in this finite mentality and in the human experience that we can have the connection and interact and experience all the sensations that life has to offer. Did you have something?
I did. I kind of hit a point there. When you think about the human mind, there's like 3 to 7% in the conscious mind, and the rest is in the subconscious.
Yeah.
And the conscious mind lives in that finite area, and the subconscious mind is always in the infinite.
Yeah, it's our connection to the infinite. Phil, if you don't know, is a hypnotist, as am I, and we work in that realm. A lot of the things that we do that are sometimes a mystery to us. You know, people will come to us and they're like, I want to quit smoking. I need to quit smoking. The doctor says I'll die if I don't quit smoking, and yet I still keep smoking. And, you know, through hypnosis, we can kind of help them get in touch with that. And literally what we're doing is just helping them get in touch with that part of them that has already quit smoking. You know, their actions are just catching up to the decision that they've already made. So that process is kind of easy. You had something as well, Susan?
I was just thinking about this list, so if you look at the scared side and maybe some of these items mean something to you, resonate with you, and so if you can look at one of these. I know one of them stuck, but in a way sometimes we just get stuck in a way of feeling, and maybe look at the other one, and then so that
Yeah.
might just be an exercise. It's just to say, oh, I feel really tight. Oh, maybe I should think about what does it feel to be infinite, and so just to
Yeah,
play with that.
Excellent.
yeah, and thank you. That's very beautiful. And it's also just kind of an opportunity to check and remind ourselves. When I work with new clients, one of the things that I suggest with them is check in with yourself as many times a day as you possibly can. And I recommend that you play a little game of blackjack with yourself. See if you can check in with yourself and fully check in with yourself and just see how are you doing. Where's your energy level? How comfortable are you in the moment? Are you feeling anxious or agitated? And rather than doing what we've been conditioned to do, which is shove that shit down, stick it in a box, compartmentalize, power through, fake it till you make it, suck it up, grow a pair. You know, all of these things that have taught us to ignore our feelings. And really what I'd like to do today is invite you to become obsessed with what your body's telling you and play around with the idea that the emotions that we are experiencing are not telling us about our circumstances. Just try this on for size. Again, you don't have to believe it. See if experientially this feels like what is right and true for you. And instead consider that it's really just an internal weather report. You know, I think of in the Wednesday meditations, I'm always talking about the theater of our mind, which is kind of just a cool little thing that I created to describe awareness. The awareness, the space inside of which everything occurs. Like right near you guys are looking at me and seeing me, or some of you are looking at others, whatever. And what's really going on? You know, light's coming in, it's bouncing off, being reflected back to you. It's going through your pupils, back to your rods and your cones, in your eyes. It's getting digitized, and then goes to the back of our brain, the occipital lobe, and then is rebroadcast in our imagination. And we'll close our eyes again in a second. And just notice, even with your eyes closed, there's lots of visualizations that are going on. We still see quite well. We're not seeing what's out there, we're noticing what's in here. But really, that's all we're ever noticing, what's in here. You know, you can hear my voice, but what's happening there? I'm making vibrations with my vocal cords. That's energy being beamed out into the room. And your ears are receptors, and they're picking it up, and your little cilia in your ears and your tympanic membrane are receiving those vibrations. And then again, they're being digitized and sent to our brain, where our brain makes sense of that noise and allows it to process. But all of that's happening on the inside. And this analogy of the theater of our mind, powered by the greatest special effects department on the planet, the human imagination. Sure.
I don't want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
interrupt
no,
the train, but
Bring it.
I really love how you have the perceived and the perceiver.
Yeah.
I love that, because we've been so conditioned. We've been collectively brainwashed.
Absolutely.
We've been stuck in the matrix. We've been programmed. And we are so easily caught off track by what we perceive. But yet, when you step back, like we're talking, when you become the receiver, you can, that's enlightening, that's liberating, that's powerful. Now, I think to me is what you're talking about. Step back, look up, go up on top of the hill and see the view from up there. It's pretty cool.
Perfect timing. It's like you're working from my script. That was the exact perfect thing to say. Yeah, so if you think about a theater in your mind, or just a theater in general, actually, you know, the theater has the screen, and the screen is absolutely essential to watching a movie when you go to the theater. You got to have three things. You got to have a light source. You got to have energy. That light source in the theater is the light of the projector. And in that analogy, that's the life force that's flowing through us all the time. We've been here 45 minutes. That means our bodies, on average, have made roughly 4.5 billion new red blood cells.
Yeah.
That is a big number.
And 100 puns.
Say it again.
And 100 puns.
Well, that's speaking for yourselves.
For some of us, 100 pounds, absolutely. And because the amount of blood that we have in our body remains the same, that means we've eliminated 4.5 billion red blood cells as well. If you think about our body, we breathe in, most people, typically when you're breathing, the average human breathes around 14 to 16 breaths per minute. If you do breath work, you know, it's probably a little bit lower than that. And when I do my check-in, that's one of the very first things that I look at. Where's my breath? Am I breathing shallow? Or am I breathing nice and deep and really flowing? And if you notice, when you start meditating, and I didn't even give you any suggestions to breathe longer and slower and deeper and more fully, but your body just does that anyway. As we settle down, you know, if we're in a dangerous situation, if you imagine kind of stepping out into the street and not seeing that a car comes by and nearly getting hit, what's your body's reaction?
Step back.
Exactly.
Hold our breath, tighten up, protect ourselves. And if we stay there very long, then that's going to kick in our sympathetic nervous system, which is going to start pulling blood flow from our neocortex, our analytical brain, and bring it back to our lizard brain. Survival mode. It's going into survival mode. And when that happens, if you've ever like tuned in when your sympathetic nervous system kicks in and just watch what's actually happening in our body, our ears get more finely attuned. Our vision becomes a little bit more peripheral. You know, we're much more aware of our surroundings. And, you know, if a bear happens to come out of hibernation and we're out on a trail slugging around in the mud, and the bear's cranky and hungry and confused, why am I awake in the middle of January? This is kind of crazy. That's a very appropriate response for us. You know, it's necessary for survival. If you were here when Amarissa talked about her encounter with the bear, for those of you who weren't here, she's a member of this community and was out hiking one day, came between a mama bear and two cubs, and she immediately knew, I'm screwed. And she was. The mama bear attacked her, like knocked her down and was just hitting her against the ground, trying to knock her out. Perfectly natural reaction for the bear because it was just protecting its cubs. And thankfully, Amarissa is still with us, but as she described it, she recognized that her body was going into pure survival mode. And really, that's part of the beauty of the design. But sometimes we are living in this divine energy that's flowing through us. Other times, if we're lost in the story, we're living in the feeling of our thinking taking form moment to moment. Every time we have a thought, our body reacts. You know, this is all an interconnected system. So if we're thinking scary thoughts, the brain says, ooh, danger. Let's get that sympathetic nervous system cranked up. When we're relaxed like we were in that meditation, our vagus nerve is sending messages up to the brain. It's like, ooh, we're in chill. We're in rest and relax and digest. And the brain says, okay, let's open the pharmacy. Let's see, let's give them a little dopamine, a little oxytocin, a little serotonin, some endorphins, all the yummy feel-good chemicals. And that goes through our bloodstream and communicates with the body. You're cool right now, dude. Just relax. Let go of all of that tension. And going back to the movie theater, so we've got the life force, which is the light of the projector. We've got the film that's running in front of the projector. It's probably all digitized now, but I'm old school. And so, you know, you've got this film that's going through and it's projecting up onto the screen. And I want to just invite you to consider that we are the screen. Our true essence, our divine essence is the screen. Unmoving, solid, infinite, eternal, can't be hurt, not broken, never needs to be fixed. And totally does not care. Think about the screen. Think about life from the point of view of the screen. One day it's going to be showing or having projected upon it is maybe a better way to say it. Having projected upon it a romantic comedy. And the next day, maybe an action adventure film. Sometimes, and for some people too often, it's a horror show. Movie marathon, over and over again. Other times it's a documentary, but the screen couldn't care less what is being projected on it. And that presents an opportunity in kind of using that sheet to just consider, where am I right now? Am I connected to my divinity? Or am I lost in the story? Is there a horror thing being played on? And I personally do not like horror movies, but I have a group of friends who absolutely love them. And they get together for movie nights, and usually I don't attend, but sometimes I do. And if it's a horror show, in order to go through it, I get so lost in the thing that I'm like running out of the room and itchy, and my body's like, we don't like this, get out, get out. And like every bit of my body is telling me, remove yourself from this space. That's the emotion that's arising in me. And that emotion is just energy in motion, and it's requesting of me to get into motion. So I've got one of two choices in those situations. I can either follow my body, and my body's requesting, this is uncomfortable for us. We kind of like the fact that you've been meditating twice a day for 40 years. And this body likes that energy. This body does not like Scream 3 or whatever the movie of the day is. So there's always the option to get up and get out of the room or just not show up in the first place. But sometimes I miss my friends and I like to be with them. And, those are fun evenings. So I'll sit and watch the movie, or maybe I'll kind of barely watch the movie and be in the kitchen a lot and just talking with people as they're getting up. But if I'm sitting there, I can just remind myself, this is just a movie. It's just a movie. It's just light being projected on a TV. None of this is actually happening. And I can kind of manually talk myself down, but in doing that, I'm having to resist the feelings that I'm having inside. And I'd like to do another little experiment with you if you're up for this. This will be probably take us about 6 or 7 minutes, I'm guessing. We'll see. This is called the bliss technique. And I've done this one time here before, so some of you may have sat through it before. For others, it'll be new. It's real easy. What I'm going to request that you do in a moment is think of an uncomfortable situation. Something that is going to be uncomfortable for you. And I want you to just, in a moment, invite those thoughts in and just be one with the feelings that arise, knowing that it's, by design, going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I would like to just, rather than analytically thinking about it, because normally when a yucky feeling arises in us, our mind goes to work and is looking for an explanation. And the rational mind is always wanting to know what's going on, why is this happening, what does it mean, am I safe? What should I be doing now? Those are questions you can think about driving on, a nice up the Glen highway and everything's cool, and suddenly you go over a little hill and come and you see this sea of red lights, and you could be lost in like a driving trance, a driving meditation. But that part of your brain, the critical mind, the sentinel, sees those red lights and it's like, wake up, all hands on deck. And your mind very quickly goes, what's happening? Why is this happening? Am I safe? What should I be doing? What does this mean? Starts running down those things very quickly. And in this process, I'm going to ask you not to engage that part of your mind. Just give your mind permission to just sit this one out, just watch and be aware, knowing that this is going to be a safe and a fun and an interesting exploration. No particular outcome in mind, just kind of see what happens. So I would ask yourself to just check in with yourself. You just ask your conscious mind, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to, and it doesn't need to be like a really death-defying thing. If you just got a letter from the IRS saying your last 3 years of tax returns are about to get audited, that's probably a little bit more intense than you want to work with. But if you think of like a situation with somebody, that if you've got somebody in your life that you're angry with right now, or if you've got a meeting coming up at some point in the future that you're a little bit nervous about, or just anything that would make you a little uncomfortable, in a moment, I'm going to invite you to just kind of pull that energy in, but don't think about it, experience it. Notice how it's showing up in your body, somatically. So as that feeling comes, and if there's a little bit of tension, just notice, man, I'm getting my heart space just really contracted. It feels the need to protect itself, and my shoulders are tightening up, and say, okay, go ahead, tighten up shoulders. Let's just see where this goes. And what in the world is Bobby talking about? But I'm all in. And just notice how it feels as you're doing that without having to think about my shoulders are tight because of XYZ. Just avoid the need for the rational explanation. So just kind of close your eyes. I'm going to turn the music up a little bit more and just find yourself relaxing into the calm energy that we've created here this morning. It's yummy, isn't it? This is really just like a very pleasant space that we've co-created together. So this is the bliss technique. This is a pathway to clarity, peace, and freedom that flows from the understanding that we are already whole. And that many of the things that we have been taught to label as pain or stress, that we've been taught to shove down and to ignore and to power through, just like to explore whether or not that maybe those feelings are actually serving us. They're not something to be avoided or ignored or powered through, but rather they're our body speaking to us. They're whispers of wisdom, and they're inviting us to draw our attention to a specific place. So think of your idea, and this figment can be from the past or something that's going on in your life right now, or it can be something that you're worried about in the future. And just remember, this is not about solving this problem. This is about exploring that part of us that before that problem arises is already intrinsically connected to wisdom and freedom and clarity. It's about using what we've labeled as stressful moments as a catalyst for exploration, for inquiry, for diving within. It's an invitation to check and see, in this moment, are we living from the divine I am? Or are we living through the feelings of our thoughts, taking form moment to moment? Are we living in the story? So in a moment, I'm just going to ask you to conjure up that experience. And it can be past, present, or future, just so long as it elicits a little bit of stress or tension in your body. And this is where it gets interesting, because I'm going to ask you to become acutely aware of how this experience is manifesting in your body. Your mind already has ideas about it, and we know those ideas already. So let's shift our perspective from the mind to the body, from the critical mind to the compassionate heart, and to see if from this perspective of the compassionate heart, how things show up differently This technique serves as a shortcut to tap into the profound wisdom that is encoded in our bodily sensations. Joe Dispenza has an interesting analogy. He says our mind is the activity of our brain. Our conscious mind is the activity of our brain. It's the thinking that's happening. And the sensations that we have in our body, the perceptions, the emotions, the inklings, those are all the activity of the unconscious mind. It's what I like to call the whispers of wisdom. So we've already acknowledged that this might be a little uncomfortable. So just ask yourself again, am I willing to just play around with this energy and see what it has to teach me, to see what shows up? And of course, being present here and now with your eyes closed, that implies that, but go ahead and check in and just notice if there's a part of you that's hesitating. And if a part of you is hesitating, that's fine. You don't need to do anything about that. You can just be one with that as well. No need to judge it. Just notice if there's any hesitation showing up, and we're not looking to override any of these feelings. Instead, we want to acknowledge them. We don't need to welcome them just yet. Just check in and see if you're ready to welcome them in fully, or at least welcome them in on some level. And remember, you've got the power to control this experience. You can just fade the energy, step back. You can just step in and say, this is just an experience. I'm just playing along. This is just the mental movie that I'm shining up on my screen. And you can remind yourself that this is just a movie. We don't want it to be so muted, though, that it's trivial. We really want to experience these feelings. So assuming that you're ready, bring to mind this experience that you'd like to cultivate some more freedom around. You know, maybe when we have uncomfortable feelings, that's actually an invitation for us to go within and say, what's going on? You know, are these so-called negative feelings just really information to ask us to explore and say, dude, you feel uncomfortable. What's going on? And explore that a little bit. So just sit with this experience for a little bit. We're not here to change it. We're not here to fix it. We're not here to try to make it vanish. And just notice how you are experiencing it. Where is this sensation showing up for you? How is it showing up for you? Is it in your heart? Is it in your gut? Have your shoulders gotten a little tighter? Is it diffuse or is it real pinpointed? Does it seem to have a shape? Does it seem to have a color? Does it seem to have a message? And just play around with that energy. Allow the feeling to simply be what it is. Instead of viewing it as a problem that needs to be solved, just consider that this is a part of us. Maybe it's been rejected, or maybe it's been judged to be wrong. Maybe it's been judged to be wrong a long, long time ago. And just be open to the possibility that healing can be as simple as welcoming this part of us back home again. Saying, I no longer reject you. I'm here to explore whatever message that you have with me. And picture yourself experiencing the world through the eyes of this sensation, through the eyes of this feeling, and embody it completely. Continue to breathe and stay present. And if this presence was a being, what would its message be for you? What would its hope be for you? And notice just how is this sensation now showing up in your body? Is it morphing? Is it changing at all? Play around with breathing into and out of that space. Notice, does it have an edge where it stops, an edge inside awareness? And just notice in this space, awareness is just a vast container, holding all of our experiences without judgment. Just like the screen on the movie. Screen doesn't care if it's a romance or an action adventure or horror show. The screen is just being the screen. And notice if you can get in touch with that part of you too, that is simply allowing this feeling to occur. And if you are in touch with that part of you, how does that part of you that is witnessing the morphing, witnessing the sensation feel? Can you simultaneously feel the discomfort of that feeling and the innate peace and tranquility from which it arose? Let's play around with the idea of that infinite ocean that I talked about earlier. With that feeling that you're experiencing, imagine it just as a unique wave on the ocean of consciousness, a unique expression of the divine, energy already free, showing up as a problem in this moment, what we've been conditioned to label as a problem. And just kind of see what happens if instead of trying to solve it, you just ask, what is it that you'd like of me? What are you here for? Why are you arising? What, if anything, do you have to share? And as you consider this wave, understand that this wave is arising from you. It is made of the energy that we call you. It is arising for you. All part of the experience, made through you, known by you. And ultimately you will see this wave return back to the ocean of awareness, coming back home to you. And it should be easy to imagine this experience just being a part of you now. A part that is reaching out for attention, longing to be welcomed back. A bit of energy that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel in harmony with the rest of us that we call the divine I am. Each moment of tension or resistance reveals where life is indicating a perceived lack of freedom. Or maybe it's pointing to something that would make us more in line with the divine I am. Sensing that we are a little bit out of balance on an unconscious level and communicating to the conscious mind in the only way that it notices how to do that. And now shift your attention. Notice the stillness and the peace that we are co-creating. Notice how this stillness nourishes our nervous system, rewiring it to grant deeper access to our true nature, to our authentic self. Now just spend a second or two and kind of check in and see if there is a message that that feeling has of you or for you. Is there a message in there? And now, just see if you can welcome that feeling back into the pool of tranquility. See if it's willing to join us, or does it rather want to fade off into obscurity, just fading away, having served its purpose. And let's just take a moment to acknowledge what a gift that feeling has been for us right now in this moment, proving to be a catalyst for which we could share. And when you're ready, come on back into the room and let's have our last little bit of sharing, and we'll kind of bring things to a close. When you're ready, there's no hurry.
Is it me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sharing. Okay.
Come on, Susan.
So what came to mind for me was last week I left here, I was gonna go to the Diamond area, so I made a right.
Hold on just a second, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Not interested in the story right now. So just what was your experience?
I was telling about what came.
We don't need the story, just what did you physically notice? Not what you thought about,
Oh.
what you felt. So just sit with that a second and just notice if you can see a difference between the feeling that you are experiencing and what's happening versus the thinking about the feeling and the story of the feeling. Jillian?
The sun was rising over the mountains while we did this.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of the feeling that I was having.
Yeah. The warmth of the light and the energy, and just kind of one with the energy. Laurel?
The thoughts going through my head made where I was tense in my shoulders, my heart, and the release was very powerful. The shoulders just relaxing.
That's so beautiful, and you reminded me of one of my favorite poems, so thank you very much for that. This is a short one, it's not one of mine. What we resist will persist. And that line is so important. And if you think about this emotion arising in you and it having a message for us, imagine what's happening if we resist it. Like if, for example, I had a real important message that I wanted to share with you and you were like, not now. And I'm like, no,
Like
no,
what
no.
you just did to Susan.
What's that?
Like what you just did to Susan.
Yeah, exactly like that. If it has a message for us, though, it's just kind of becomes more persistent. Hang on just a second. I'll get you next. What we resist will persist. What we think and feel, we make real. And that's that idea that we are sometimes living from the perspective of the divine I am. And we are sometimes living from the perspective of the scared, fearful, egoic I am. The story of Bobby. Bobby this morning was very worried how this was going to go. Wasn't sure. Divine I am said, it'll just flow. You'll just sit down and start talking, and you'll connect with all of the people here, and people will interact and give you little things. But what we think and feel, we make real. If we believe that it's true, it is true for us. So many people use that phrase, my truth. Kind of seems to me that there is actually only one truth. I don't know that we all get our versions, but in essence we do. Because if we believe, for example, that people of certain ethnicities have certain characteristics, and we believe that deeply, that will be true for us, and it will become a prism through which we view the world. And our mind will begin looking for evidence to back up that belief. It's a phenomenon in psychology called confirmation bias. That we can kind of sort. You can look at Donald Trump and just think of the Trump energy, and I'm not going to be talking politics at all, but there are people in this room that when they think of Trump energy, they think of, we're finally getting back on track again. We're finally going to do the right thing. And there are just as many people, perhaps more, that when they think of the Trump energy, they think, we are going to hell in a handbasket. And regardless of which side of that spectrum you fall on, your mind will naturally look for evidence to back that up. And you can see that in the news. Our news has got news that promotes the narrative of Team Blue, and we've got the news that promotes the narrative of Team Red. We don't actually have the news anymore. Nobody's talking about facts. They used to give us the facts and we would decide what we thought about them. Now they tell us what to think about it, and we have to decide whether or not they're facts.
That's right. They say, this is what you need to know.
This is what you need to know. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so the energy was there and it just said, I too am just energy. So it just was, it kind of was profound for me because that energy pretty much told me it could just be transmuted because it was just energy. Just like each of these has its own energy. I mean, it's all just energy.
Yeah.
So,
And that could be kind of fun and cool to play with. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Want to share kind of Jen?
So, in the scenario, I was figuring out what was causing the problem with what was making it tough, which I didn't really know before. Like, why is this gonna be so hard? But then when I thought about it, fear, shame, embarrassment, all, I was like, oh, that's what that is. And so then I was able to think, oh, well, I don't want that, I'm not gonna deal with that. Then I was able to move it. So I think it's gonna be super easy now.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, yeah.
It's very interesting to just to play around with the idea when you've got something that's bugging you, to just sit with it.
Yeah.
And experience it and invite it in and say, and be curious. Ooh, interesting. Why are you showing up? What's going on?
So hard.
And instead of resisting it, the third line of that poem, what we resist will persist. What we think and feel, we make real. What we befriend, we can transcend. Well, exactly what you said. Just right there. So this will kind of bring to end the little formal part. I'll share just a couple of things that we've got going on. After this, we're going to roll right into an Atom visioning session. Everyone is welcome to hang around for that. We're just going to talk a little bit about our identity and kind of where we want to go, and we'll sort of in a way kind of continue this exploration, but with a goal in mind than just a pure exploration. This upcoming Wednesday, we have our new moon drumming ceremony where we get together to tap into the creative new moon energy. Dave? No?
Yeah, I was looking at that and, I had a robotics tournament in Fairbanks canceled because of weather this weekend, and we are regrouping, and I will be in Fairbanks on Wednesday.
Oh, no.
Well, we will miss, normally Dave Patterson is our drum master. We bang on his drum that he and his wife co-created together with their very own hands. It's kind of a magical thing. So Dave won't be leading, I guess I will. So it will be a different and interesting experience, but it's really become a very beautiful thing, and we're tapping into some interesting new energies and rhythm. And if you think about the cycles, the new moon is kind of like the spring of the lunar cycle. It's the beginning of the new cycle. It's the beginning of creative energy. In indigenous cultures, it's the time that they begin treks, they begin quests, they plant new seeds, they go to war. You know, anything that they're doing, they're tapping into that energy. Do you have a guided meditation this week, or?
I had one, but nobody showed up, and I'm going to America, so probably
So
won't be
that'll be
anything in
on
February.
pause. We have Nia dance here 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Susan and her cohort teach Tai Chi and Qigong every single day here, I think. Is that right? Every day? Every single day we've got here. And that's just a beautiful, moving meditation that really helps you kind of harmonize with all of the stuff that is. So the way that we close out them is just kind of complete the circle, hold hands and join energy.
Yes, there are more people.
So just taking a couple of nice energizing breaths. And just continue to tune into the energy and maybe tune into it even a little bit more refined, and see if you can feel yourself collecting the energy from the person to your left, passing through your heart space, up your arms, through your heart, down your right arm, and connecting with the person on your right. And just have this continuous circuit flowing through us. Let us just take a little moment to give thanks to this wonderful community that we have all created together. You know, we're not part of a larger organization. We were founded 50 plus years ago by Mary Nelson. She just had an idea one day and got to work and created the Atom Center. Kept it alive for 35 years on her own. She was the glue that held this place together. And then when she got a little older and got tired, Dawn Kelly stepped up and took the reins. She said she didn't really want to do it, but she just kind of knew no one else would. And she entered into a sweet space, and she has been the glue that's held us together for 14 years. And now, as we enter 2025, a 9-year, if you add those numbers together, a year of completion. We are completing a chapter of Adam, turning the page, and we have the ability to rewrite a new Adam, and we'll explore how we get together and why we get together, and really more deeply perhaps enjoy the benefits that we do get together. In that survey, if you've completed it, the number one answer that people who have completed it have expressed so far as to the thing that they love the most about the Adams Center is the sense of community that we create. And as we move forward, we'll be looking at ways to make that connection to community, to each other, and to the divine even deeper and more profound, while simultaneously being even more present and closer to the surface. And with that, I simply say, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you guys very much for your energy and your participation.